welcome to another edition of Everything's Photography. My name's David. Today I'm going to teach you how to composite two photographs together to make them look like one. I'm going to teach you how to color grade those photographs so it looks realistic, and how to use perspective in order to bring these two photographs together. So the first photograph, and the photograph I'm going to use for the base, is going to be this desert scene, and these are just stock photographs, and the second photograph we're going to use is this. So what we're going to do is we're going to get this chap here, and we're going to put him in the middle of this road here, and we're going to make it all look like one photograph. So the first thing that we do is we work out where our horizon line is. So we want it to be in perspective. So the first thing I do here, I go to here and I use the line tool. So if you find the line tool, you'll find it's probably just one above the hand. I make sure that up here I've got this set on 10 pixels so I can see the line tool, and I generally fill this in with red. That way we can see what we're doing. Now if I get here, if I get this line here and I bring this line to here, and then I get this line here and I bring this line to here. Now you can see where these two lines are crossing. Now if we get everything else, if we get this line coming across here, it's always on the horizon line generally is the point that you want. So anywhere across here, this is our horizon line here, and that's what we really want to be thinking about. So now we can get rid of these lines. So hit the top one, press shift, hit the bottom line, and I can move all those to the bin. I know that this here is my horizon line. So now let's bring in our other photograph. Now to do this, make sure the lock on here is switched off. Hit your move tool, which is the top one on your left hand side, and then drag this to the picture, bring it down to the middle, and just let go of the mouse button, and there you go. Let's copy that over. Now we're going to need to make a selection of this chap. So first of all, what we're going to do is we're going to work out where the horizon line is. Well, the horizon line is always where land meets air, if you will. So I'm looking at this, and my horizon line, I think, is probably across here, isn't it? We've got this chap standing on something as well down here. So I think if I get my line tool, my horizon line's probably across there. He's moved up the picture a little bit, so if we was to move him down, I reckon about here is where we want to match our horizon lines. So probably looking at this, where his ears are. Okay, so let's get rid of those two horizon lines. So like I said before, hit the top one, shift key, hit the next one down, drag those into the bin, and we know now that our horizon line is by where his ears are. Now if you're using the latest version of Photoshop, you'll be able to do a quick selection like this. Hit the quick selection tool. Make sure the layer of the chap is lit up, and then at the top here I've got select subject. That generally does a pretty good job, to be fair. As you can see, if I look at that, that's an absolute fantastic job. I could probably use the Alt key to bring it back and just refine that around his fingers a little bit. Oh, no cuts on with his hand off. But we can work on these details in a bit. That's fine, because we're just going to mask them. So that's how we would do a quick selection if you're using the latest shop of Photoshop. If not, use your quick selection tool and then drag your mouse over here and just select the inside of him, and it should select your subject pretty well. What I'm going to do now, we've got the marching ants. These things here is what we call marching ants. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to hit the mask tool, which if you come across the bottom here, you've got your chain, your FX. The next one is like a square with a dark circle in the middle. That's layer mask. So I'm going to add a layer mask to that. And as you can see, we've just layer masked our chap into the picture. I'm going to try and figure out where the perspective line is. So we figured out that the line for perspective is our horizon line here. We can put him anywhere across this horizon line. And we also worked out that the horizon line, to get him into perspective, is across here where his ears are. So let's move him down. So let's move him down to here. Now you can see straight away that he now looks like he's in perspective. So as you can see here, that when we first had him, he was here like this, and it just doesn't look right. It doesn't look like he's standing on the floor. It actually looks like he's floating on the floor. So perspective, when you're doing a composite, is key. So we looked at the horizon line. We looked at his horizon line. We know his horizon line is by his ears. We drop him down to where we think the horizon line is, roughly by his ears. And as you can see straight away, he looks more like he should be in the picture. Now, we can put him anywhere we want across this horizon line. We can have him there. We can put him across here. We can put him literally wherever you want in this picture, as long as he's in perspective. That's the main thing. I'm going to put him in the middle here. I quite like him here. Yeah, let's put him down a bit. There. And that's, so far, he looks like he's in actually part of the picture. Now, of course, the colour's wrong. As you can see, this is kind of a browny scene, and he's quite bright because he came from a brighter scene. So if we look at the scene he came from a very, very bright scene. So what do we do here then? Well, the best thing to do in these situations is make a black and white layer. And if you get the adjustment layers down the bottom, so you've got your layer mask here, and you go to the black and white, you go to the adjustments layers icon, which is down here, and click your black and white layer. Now the reason I do this is because it's easy to get the black and whites to look like they should be, so you can get the levels to look like they should be. Now if you look at this, he's a bit brighter than the rest of the picture. So from here, I would then open a levels adjustment layer. And with that levels adjustments layer, I would put a clip-in mask. So the clip-in mask is only affecting him. It's only affecting, so the clip-in mask here, if you come up here, it looks like a square with a little arrow That square with a little arrow that goes on to him, that means that whatever I do to this layer, it will only adjust the layer underneath it. So i.e. will only adjust him. Now, with our levels here, you've got your whites this side, your darks this side are what's happening in the picture itself, and in the middle you've got your contrast. This bar here tells me what is my whitest white and my darkest black. So if I move this here, that means that no matter how white I make that picture, it will only go to 221 whiteness. That will be the whitest white within the picture. So if I move my black here, that means that no matter what I do to this here, the blackest black will always be 255, 28 output levels. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to try look at my blacks and look at the blacks that are in the shadows that are in the picture, and as you can see, my blacks and shadows are a lot more prominent, so I need to turn them down. So I'm going to bring this white to here, and I'm going to bring this over to here. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the contrast down a bit, because I think it's a bit too contrasty, and I'm just going to bring the whites this way. Now the reason I'm going to do that is I'm going to try and get it that's starting to become where I want. Try and get it so that it looks like it's part of the image. Now if I turn off my black and white image now, as you can see already, if I turn off my levels, that's where we was before. That's where we are now, just by messing around with the levels adjustment. Now the problem is when you do this, now I've sorted these out here, I can now turn off my black and white layers. So that's now switched off. So the next problem that I'm hitting here is I'm also hitting the luminance. So what I want to do, this here, I want to get this here, I want to click on that, and I want to come down to luminosity, and I want to click on luminosity, and that's my blend mode. So I'm going to go to my blend mode, I'm going to come down and I'm going to click on luminosity. Now as you can see the difference, if I turn my layers off, look, and then on, we're starting to look like we're part of the picture. So the very next thing to do here after this is we now want to bring in the colours really. So what we want to do is go back down to your levels adjustment layer, and you want to hit curves. Again with the curves layer, I'm going to put on a clipping mask. I only want it to affect the layer underneath. So with this, see these three eye drops here? I'm going to get these. The top one is the shadows, the bottom one is the whites, the middle one is your highlights. So I'm also going to click here on the zone, on the actual mask itself, not on the mask here. It's really important that you should click here. I'm now going to double click, going to find a dark, the darkest picture on the darkest part of the picture I can find, which I think is this. It almost looks like tarmac in the road, and as you can see, that's not actually black. So I'm now going to click OK. Now what I've done here is I've recorded that colour. Do you want to save target as defaults? No, we don't. What we've actually done is we've recorded that colour into our curves adjustment layer. So now I'm going to get the bottom one, which is the whites, and I'm going to double click on that, and I'm going to find a part of the picture that's obviously not blown out, but I want the whitest part of the picture. And if you can see this stuff here is probably the whitest part of the picture, and as you can see here, it's not actually quite white. So I'm going to click OK, and I've just recorded that. Now what I want is halfway between for my mid. So I'm going to double click on this one, and now we've done the whites, we've done the black. Halfway, I'm guessing, would probably be the darkest part of this mountain range in the background. And then I'm going to click OK there. Now I'm going to click on the top one once, and that's going to do the darkest part of our picture. And I'm going to find the darkest part of our chap that we've put on there. So, and I think the back of his head there is a really dark place, and that's just set the darks on him. And as you can see already, that's made a massive difference. I'm now going to do the same thing here. I'm going to click on the bottom one once, and that's my whites. And I'm going to find the whitest part. The whitest part, I think, I've done that. There you go. So I've hit the white bit there in his trousers where the sun's shining. Now we want to do the mid-tone. So now I want to find a part of him that's halfway between the dark and the white of his shorts, and I'm going to suggest that that's probably the shadows that are in his arm about here. And as you can see right there, we're bringing him into the picture. So if I turn the curves adjustment layer off, you can see he's starting to become the same sort of colour as the picture. Now I think he's a bit too strong, so get my opacity and bring the opacity down a bit. I'm thinking probably about 68. I quite like that, 68, and he's starting to look like he's supposed to be in the picture itself. So now if we go to where we've come to so far, if I turn my curves adjustment layer off and I turn my levels off, you can see that we've gone from this to this, and we're now starting to really look like it's part of the picture. What I would do with my curves adjustment layer is I'd go to the blend mode, and I'd bring the blend mode down, and I'd click color. And that really sets that in there. The reason I do colour is because you don't get any luminosity at all with the curves adjustment layer, and we don't want any of that. So now we're here, we need to fine tune it. So what I would do now is, as you can see down here, we used our layer mask, so we can fine tune him a little bit. So let's click on the layer mask, which is the black one. Click on here, which is your zoom tool, and move that 100%. And then move the whole picture by hitting the space bar. I can move the whole picture across here. And if we have a look at this, it made a good selection. But what it didn't do is you can see tiny bits here of where we didn't get. So we're going to get those. Now remembering that white reveals and black hides, we've got black there, so we want our foreground colour to be white. We get our brush tool, making sure that our brush tool is a really nice size. And what we want to do is we want to conceal that, not bring it out. So get our brush tool and just bring our brush tool into these edges and just fine tune it. I mean, you'll fine tune yours a lot more than me. I'm just doing this to show you how the best way it is to. We've taken a chunk. Now, the good thing about doing a layer mask and not a selection where we put our selection on another level, on another layer, should I say, is the fact that now I've taken a chunk out of his arm here, I can just do this, paint it, and paint his arm back in. Now we've got bits in his fingers here, which, to be fair, is going to be very, very difficult. So let's zoom right in. And as you can see there, look, it does look a bit pixely, but we can see what we're doing. We get the brush tool, turn that to black, and we can literally get rid of those pixels, make the brush a bit smaller. Now, the shortcut to making the brush smaller or larger on your keyboard, if you're using a Mac, and I'm sure it's the same on a PC as well, to be fair, is the brackets. So if you look at your left and right brackets on your keyboard, they'll make your brush smaller or bigger. And as you can see, we can come in here between these fingers, get rid of any unwanted pixels. Like I said, I'm doing I've made his hand look like an alien there. And again, the good thing is you can just come back, paint his hand back in there, change that colour there, and just get rid of those few pixels there. And then that looks much better. Now, there is another thing you can do to also just enhance this if you want, and that's a pretty good composite there. Is what I would do next is I would go to your background colour, right click on your mouse and flatten this image. What that does is it brings, you get this discard hidden layers, you just click OK on that. What that'll do is once you flatten your image, that turns that into one image, if you will. I would then go to filter, come down to camera raw filter. Now in camera raw filter, you can now treat this like an ordinary photograph. So you can go to your basics, and you can bring your exposure up or down, and everything you would normally do in Lightroom. But one of the things I would do here to bring the picture all together, there's two things. The very first thing I would do is I would come down to detail, and I would I would come down to effects. I'm going mad today. I'd get my vignette, and I'd put my vignette on 11. Now that will, if you can see the difference that's made, you can hardly see it, but it really brings the picture together. Now, if you go back to your sliders, see this little square here with the magnifying glass in it. I'm going to click that, and here you've got artistic, black and white, modern or vintage. Click one of these, so let's go to artistic, and as you can see, it's a color grade. So that'll grade the whole thing, and it'll be like a final color grade for you. So if I go to, I do quite like that one. I quite like that one as well. But let's go with this one. I'm torn. Let's go with that one because I do quite like that one. And under here you've got sliders, so you can choose how much of that you really want. So if it's too much, just bring it down a tad. There you go, and we've just color graded that. I'm going to click OK on this, and I think you'll find that that's the end. It's been an absolute joy sharing this with you. I hope you've learned from this, but that is how to make a picture appear within a picture. a good composite there. When I very first started doing these composites, I was always finding that my picture just looked like a picture that was stuck in the middle of a picture, and it never looked right. But if you go for the basics, the levels, the perspective, get that color right, and you can really start having fun with it. And there's nothing you can't do after that. You can composite anything into anything. I mean, you could turn this into an advert. I could put text across the top here. It could be an advert for something. And remember, photography is something for you personally to do and be creative with, and not for anyone else. So do this for yourself, enjoy it, don't listen to what anyone else says, and absolutely have fun with it. And that's another wrap from me, so to speak, and I hope to see you in the next lesson. Thank you very much.